What's bigger than this? Oklahoma City's on the brink of the first NBA season to call its own. OSU's in the middle of the season of its dreams, and some OU fans are dreaming of another OU-Texas showdown. Hi from the Dodge Sports Desk, I'm Mike Sherman. Joining me today are NBA writer Mike Baldwin, who will tell us how the Thunder will measure success in its first season in OKC. Multimediator Mike Kaler, who will handicap the chances of another Red River shootout. And assistant sports editor Ryan Sharp, who will talk about this week's Red River shootout in Austin. Ryan, let's start with you. OSU is a 13-point underdog Saturday in Texas. That's at least the last time I checked. Weren't the Cowboys a 2-touchdown underdog when they went up to Missouri a couple weeks ago? And if they could win there, why can't they win here?
The way things have gone this year in college football and last year, I mean, there's no reason to think they can't. It's a tough test with Colt McCoy and those guys throwing the ball around the way they are, and the offense, Texas' offense scoring the way they can. But the way I see it and the way that we've talked about it most of the week is they've got two chances. They're either going to have the game against Texas that we thought they were going to have against Missouri, or it's just going to be a score fest, 45-43, something like that. Or their defense is going to have another one of these unbelievable games where they step up out of nowhere and have the big game that they had against Missouri and that they had against Baylor.
3 turnovers against Missouri. And, guys, the other thing they did against Missouri is, remember, Chase Daniel has not had a 3-and-out the whole season. Well, he had several 3-and-outs in that game. He was running for his life. Couldn't the OSU defense step up once again, Mike?
Well, they definitely could, but as we saw last week, Texas manhandled Missouri even more than OSU did, so Missouri maybe was slightly overrated.
At Texas.
But, I mean, they had them down 4 touchdowns early. The thing that stands out to me in this game, there's 2 key points. One is OSU runs the ball well. Texas has not faced a good running team. How will their defense fare against a good running team? On the flip side, Texas has played 2 near-perfect games against Oklahoma and Missouri. 0 turnovers. For Oklahoma State to win, they'll probably need a couple turnovers, whether they're forcing them on their own or Texas makes their own mistakes. Because I think one thing never talked about in this market, but I saw it 2 or 3 times when OSU got big leads and then lost the games down in Austin. That 90,000 is loud down there. And they said last week against Missouri it's as loud as it's ever been. This is as big a home field advantage as there is in the Big 12, I think, volume-wise.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
Nebraska's loud, but Austin is every bit as loud. It doesn't get out there much, but trust me, when 90,000 get going, and now that they've got this kind of team like they did with Vince Young a couple years ago, they said last week against Missouri as loud as it's ever been.
Well, you saw them. You were there for the 35-7 game,
Meltdown,
which is and there will never be a momentum switch like that again in the history of the Western civilization. I mean, that's why. But when I hear about great home field advantages, Texas doesn't come to mind usually, does it?
No. I think just talking a little bit on Baldwin's point, I think the key here for OSU is finishing the deal. We all know that they can lead in the first half in Austin. It's a matter of finishing the deal, which they were able to do in Missouri. But I think the big difference is the difference between Colt McCoy and Chase Daniel. Colt McCoy is a cool customer. Chase Daniel, once he got frustrated, the last 2 weeks when he lost to OSU and we lost to Texas, he just lost his cool. I don't think Colt's going to do that.
I don't think they will get the lead this time, but if they do a big lead, they will hold it. This defense is better, but I mean, as we saw last week, getting a lead on Texas, you get a lead at any point in this game, you cherish it and try to win the game from there. But I mean, it's been the trend in this series. Everybody acts like it's going to happen again, and it sort of surprised us that it happened 3 or 4 times in a 5-year span. But that doesn't, like Mac Brown said, the best OSU team he's faced, but these are different teams. Don't let the last 4 years judge this game. But if OSU does get a double-digit lead this time, they will hold it.
Guys, 2 things. One point that Mike made earlier is that OSU's got a great running game, one of the better in the country. And now all of a sudden they come up against a defense that stopped OU's running game stone cold. Now, we don't know whether really OU's having some problems running the ball, but this is the OSU's best test against a good run defense. Is that right, Ryan?
Yeah, Texas has got some studs on the front line and in their linebackers. Brian Arakpo is about as good a defensive end as in college football. And you saw that against OU. They couldn't stop him with just Phil Oldholt. They had to start rolling a tight end over to help stop him. And OSU might have to do the same thing, but what OSU has that OU found out that worked is they've got Brandon Pettigrew back and healthy that they can stick over there to help Russell Okung with Arakpo.
And a great run blocker and a good chip blocker. The other thing is we really haven't got to see OSU's offense in full bloom because Pettigrew's been all nicked up. This is a game they're going to need him. Last thing about this, though, guys, Texas. Are we sleeping on Texas? I mean, they're the number 1 ranked team in the country.
It's hard to sleep on the number 1
I
team.
know, but there seems to be a prevailing thought that, well, let's wait and see. Mike, you think Texas is great.
Well, I think the main reason why everybody didn't like him is they were number 10 in preseason. They don't have the Roy Williams and Cedric Bensons. Everybody knew they had Colt McCoy, and Colt McCoy's played very well, leading Heisman candidate at this point. And so everybody thinks that's all they have. But if you look at the wide receiver, Shipley had a great game down in the Cotton Bowl. They have other receivers. Their running game that was supposedly so suspect, it's not maybe quite up to Texas standards, but we're finding out those guys aren't so bad either. And then the defense, Will Muschamp has brought a new element that Texas supposedly never had, and that's go after somebody.
This might be the most publicized guy in the history of college football. If I hear one more thing about Will Muschamp, new genius. Oh, man. He cut his head, and he's all fired.
I didn't say new genius. I said new element. They are attacking more. They're going for quarterbacks more. And it shows up. Texas used to be a little passive with the old guard. The new guy from the SEC gets after people, and let's see how OSU handles it this weekend.
Keep in mind, Texas is in the middle of a rough stretch of football games, probably the toughest in college football this year. They had OU, they had Missouri, they've got Oklahoma State, they go to Texas Tech next week. Somewhere in there, you've got to think they're going to have a rough game. They didn't have it against OU. They threw the ball all over the place. They scored a lot of points. We saw what they did in Missouri, which was unbelievable. You got OSU, then you got to go to Texas Tech. You've got to think it's somewhere in that point that they're going to have a slip up somewhere.
The no-huddle offense by OSU, the pace that they play at, I think that's going to be a factor. And let's not forget that Texas gave up a bunch of points and a bunch of yards in the Cotton Bowl against an OU team that's very balanced. It's not. I don't think Missouri has the same kind of balance that OSU brings or that OU brings. And OU's running game is suffering. So this is the best dual threat offense and really triple threat offense that Texas will have faced. Better than Missouri because they can't run the ball. OSU can't.
Oh, it's probably the best in the country.
Yeah.
No matter who OSU faces, they're going to test the other team's defense. It's going to be a great matchup, a lot of fun, and for OSU to be undefeated this late in the season, I mean, it's just incredible stuff.
But if you go by what Ryan said, you know, if they win all those games, they're as legit as a number one as we've had since another team won all their games in October against the number one team in October. This is old burnt orange October, and they're totally legit if they run all the way through and beat all those teams.
But how about this, guys? If OSU goes down there and wins, do they have a claim to number one?
I don't think they will be number one. They would have a claim to number one because you beat the team that beat Oklahoma. My guess is if Alabama beats Tennessee, which isn't a slam dunk, but if they do, Alabama would be one. If Penn State beats Ohio State, they will not climb over them, but Ohio State might be. If Alabama and Ohio State both lost, they would go all the way to the top. They'll go above OU for sure.
If you factor in OSU beating Texas, if that's a possibility to you, there's a legit chance that 1, 2, and 3 could go down. Then who knows what happens with the top 5?
Well, I'll tell you one thing that should happen. The team that beat number one at number one should be the number one.
Well, that's what happened when Texas was 5 when they beat OU, right?
But you got to figure Alabama was off that week, so they didn't play.
I mean, but OSU will have gone in the 2 of the past 3 weeks to beat the number 3 team and the number 1 team, both on the road. I mean, you got to reward that. They took Texas from 5-1. Why not take OSU?
There will be 3 if Penn State and Alabama wins. If either one of those lose, there'll be 2, and if both of them lose, there'll be 1. That's the way it'll go.
The fact that we're even talking about this is making me a little dizzy.
Well, it should make everybody who loves football in the state of Oklahoma excited because this is really, in some ways, one of the most exciting seasons we've ever come upon. Which brings us to OU. Mike, OU faces what is an inferior opponent Saturday at Kansas State. So the talk in the Sooner Nation really is not focused on the big showdown in Manhattan. It wanders a little bit, and the discussion wanders upon this. What if? What if Texas and OU were to meet again in the Orange Bowl, this time for the national title? Is that out of the question?
Well, there needs to be a lot of help. They need Penn State to lose to Ohio State. They need LSU. They need LSU to beat Alabama.
It's coming up in a couple weeks.
So if those 2 things happen, then you can really start revving it up. The problem being, a lot of people say, well, they didn't even win their division. Why should they be rewarded with going to the national title game? But if the best team around, especially if Texas does what we're talking about Texas doing, going through October and beating, 4 top 10 teams in a row, then I think you can start talking about it. The problem is a couple years ago they had a chance to do it with Michigan and Ohio State, and they didn't. They
Didn't
put
they
Florida
pass
in.
The thing about that game, though, and everybody keeps forgetting about this, is that Michigan-Ohio State game was the last game of the year.
Right.
The thing, people didn't care about the rematch. They didn't want to see the same game
Again.
right next to each other. That was what kicked that one down.
We'll put him on an assignment here. I think they passed a rule 2 years ago, though. You got to win your conference title to go to the national title game, don't you?
Well, I
don't think you do.
No,
I think they passed a rule 2 years ago.
It's all based on the BCS standings. The top two in the BCS standings go.
But no,
regardless.
after Nebraska win and didn't win, and somebody else win and didn't win, I think they put in a clause in. We'll have to check that.
Now, here's the other question, though, about OU Texas. Do people want to see that again? I claim that as far as the entertainment value goes, that was one of the best OU Texas games ever, and there have been a lot of them. I mean, you know, there for a while it looked like whoever had the ball last was going to win. Texas made a couple big plays. I mean, just as far as excitement, you really didn't want to get out of your seat, whether you're at home or there, to miss a moment of it. So I don't think the Ohio State-Michigan objection is going to be there. We don't want to see this again. I think people do want to see it again.
Yeah, and there's a chance to make it even more exciting. The Bedlam game being the last game of the year, you know, could have a big say in that. If all of this stuff falls like it could fall, you could have
another OSU Texas game.
You could have a OSU with its only loss to Texas playing OU with its only loss to Texas. Winner goes to play Texas again.
Yes.
Good then everybody's head would explode around here.
Exactly. Now, the other thing about OU, there's many miles to go before getting to that point, and OU's got some shoring up to do. Austin Box is now they're starting him at linebacker. Ryan, what's that going to do for the Sooners, and can they sort of stabilize this position?
Well, they've obviously seen something in Austin Box over practice this week that said, hey, this guy can do it, and you're playing a Kansas State team that it's not a gimme, but it's a team that you can try stuff out at, and it's not going to kill you one way or the other. Something else that probably figured that Nick Harris may have chances to play beyond college football. And if you just keep moving guys around, then that takes away what their pro prospects might be. But I think they probably saw something in Austin Box, and they've probably known for a long time that he's going to be their future middle linebacker.
They got to get to the point, though, where Nick Harris is not diving at people trying to save touchdowns, but he's making tackles closer to the line. Isn't he one of the most spectacular tacklers you've ever seen? I mean, when you look in the front pages of the Oklahoman through the years, at Oregon, he's laying out trying to stop somebody. That was a loss. At Colorado, he was doing a Superman trying. Nick Harris, to me, I know his pro prospects are important. That's great for him. But doesn't OU need Nick Harris now more than ever?
Well, I still think that they've got enough playmakers, and if Austin Box isn't cutting it through the first or second quarter, they can always pull Nick Harris up. Yeah. I mean, he played it last week and did quite a good job. He knows the schemes, he knows the formations, so it's not like the guy can't make the change.
Guys, let's go on to the Thunder now. Mike Baldwin, you've been following the Thunder all through the preseason, and that preseason wraps up Thursday in Phoenix, and then Friday in Los Angeles against the Lakers. Thunder preview, the Oklahomans Thunder preview, hits the stands on Sunday. We'll flash it more to you later. But listen, this is the first NBA season that Oklahoma City can call its own, and that's going to start Wednesday at the Ford Center against Milwaukee. The question is, how will the Thunder, this franchise that lost 20 games last season in Seattle. Oh, I'm sorry, 120 games. 120 games last year in Seattle. How will they measure success this year?
Well, I mean, we talked to PJ after practice, Darnell and I did yesterday, because it's basically their last preseason game practice. And off the record, he tells you some things like, you never go in and tell your ball club, you know, the bar's right here. But I think realistically, if you pin them down, 30 wins would be a good season. Anything more than that, they feel like they're going in the right direction. And so a lot of us, Darnell, I think in our Sunday section is picking 35. I'm picking 32. Barry Trammell, I think I heard picking 27. Around the league, everybody's picking 24, 25.
30.
30 is the number that
I like 30.
I think they got to hit that to consider this a successful season. Anything over that, I think, sort of like Oklahoma State's doing in football, maybe arriving a year early this year. Anything more than 30, I think the Thunder arrives a year early and they start making their future a little bit earlier.
Guys, I'll propose a different measurement of success, and it's Kevin Durant's numbers. Isn't this season really all about the development of Kevin Durant into a premier, carry the franchise kind of player?
Yeah, but I can't get over the fact how rough they've looked in these preseason games. I know they're all beat up, but they still don't have
a.
Yeah, I mean, they still don't have a center. You know, you can't pin the the development of Kevin Durant on the development of Johan Petro, for crying out loud. They still don't have a guy who can. They still don't have anybody who can shoot the three. So I don't know.
They don't have enough.
I mean, 30. They should have a parade if they have 30 wins.
I think if they can get through this season with around 30 wins, 25 to 30 wins, you've got a bunch of cap room that you can spend next year. You're going to have a high draft pick. You keep Russell Westbrook healthy. You keep Kevin Durant healthy. You can pull some guys in next year. They've got a legit chance to be a playoff contender next year if all the pieces fall right. I say make it through this year, 30 wins or so. You've called it a success.
Well, this brings me back to the Kevin Durant thing. And you're talking about next year in cap room. They got to do a couple things to attract free agents. One is Oklahoma City needs to be seen as an electric place to come play. And that's what it was for the Hornets. That helped them get Peja, that and a bunch of money. I mean, George Shinn threw a bunch of money at Peja and overpaid, which maybe the Thunder will have to do to get some of these kind of Peja, Stojakovic. And it's interesting, Peja, because they don't have any three-point shooters. There's got to be somebody who's a scorer out there they're going to get to kind of open things up. To me, they got to do two things. One, establish this as an exciting place to play, and establish Kevin Durant as a star who sort of alters the whole playing field, who sucks a lot of defense to him and creates openings for other, maybe lesser players, because they don't just need one big free agent. They probably need a couple.
Well, two things first about Kevin Durant. Like we've been talking with PJ, the biggest thing this year may be is they weren't into enough last possession games last year. They were somewhat competitive. If nothing else, put him in those situations 8, 10, 12 times this year because he can grow that way in addition to more of a post presence. Let him have that game-winning shot, game-tying shot. That would help his progress. The home court advantage, PJ has already said, it's already got the reputation of being one of the top 2 or 3, as he calls it, buildings in the league. And so he said everybody around the league knows that. I think, similar to college recruiting, coaches will always tell you their current players are their best recruiters more than any coach. If they make their visit on campus and they like it and all the guys show them around saying you're going to love it here, you need to come play here, that does more than anything a coach tells them. The same goes for recruiting free agents in the NBA. If they talk to Desmond Mason and Joe Smith veterans or Kevin Durant and Jeff Green, they know each other in the league and say, you know what, it wasn't that big a town, but they're nuts about this basketball team. I had a lot of fun there. That will do a lot as far as the money, like you said. That's always the bottom line. But I think those guys, if they have a fun year, and early on I think they are, that will help at least land one big free agent in the next 2 years.
Guys, how many more wins does a filled electric Ford Center mean to this team, by the way? I mean, how many? What's the number?
PJ said 2 or 3. He says it's the talent, best teams win, and Darnell and I said, we think it's 4 or 5. You guys experienced more of the game atmosphere with the Hornets because I was on the college beat, but I attended quite a few games. To me, it was worth 4 or 5 to them, and biggest thing is it gave them momentum. You're coming off a 2-game road losing streak or something, and you'd come here and win a couple tough ones that if the crowd wasn't that college-type crowd, it gives you confidence, momentum that you can carry on to the road with you and everything. I think that's an intangible that's hard to measure, but it was very important for the Hornets.
PJ said something to you about how the deal with the Hornets was people thought they were going to slip into here and steal an easy win, maybe not play their best, and that's why the Hornets jumped up and the crowd got them and they ended up losing. Listen, I think the same thing exists. People see a 20-win team that struggled in the preseason. They really didn't play a lot of guys. They don't know what they got. I think early on, and you've talked about this before too, Mike, early on the schedule favors the Thunder. I think they can get some big wins early. They got Phoenix in here. They got the Hawks in here. They got.
If they can beat the Hornets at home.
They got the Hornets in here in November.
But more important than that, what we pointed out last Sunday was 25 of their first 51 games till the All-Star break are against non-playoff teams. You got Memphis twice. You've got Minnesota twice. You go play on the road. Your road games are against the Knicks and the Nets and the teams that if you're going to win a road game against an East team, those are the kind of teams that, like PJ's telling us, the talent level's close, so maybe those are the ones you win. You need an upset now or then, whether it's Celtics, Suns, Spurs, somebody, just to have, that big marquee win. But the thing is taking care of business against the other 8 or 10 or 12 teams in the league that your talent level, that's what will get your win total to 30.
By the way, if you look at the Hornets that first season, they were playing some teams without their stars. Remember that. There was a lot of teams that came in.
Lineups
there was a lot of teams that came to Oklahoma City without their star player, and the Hornets took advantage of that. By the way, guys, lightning round, the big news in the state. Really big. I mean, bigger than the football games. is there anything bigger than Sherry Cole's new hairdo?
I thought you were talking about Sam Bradford up there going
That's
pro.
big too. I'm sorry, that was big too. But listen, people in our newsroom on the way in, they talked about it on the radio. I think when you are the subject of the FM stations talk in the morning talk, drive time, it's Sherry Cole. My question is this: is there anything bigger than this, Mike?
I'm kind of a shoe guy, so I'm kind of interested in whatever kind of shoes she has on the sideline. That'll get me in trouble at home, but. Those red high heels, those are something special too.
Well, I think the thing about Sherry is, and what's interesting, she's just always had a striking look, and there's no doubt about it. Her looks and her attitude, they just reek confidence. All of a sudden, here she comes with a new hairdo. I mean, it is the talk of our newsroom. It's the talk of the town. Mike, what do you think? If I had
Thumbs up on the new hairdo.
You like it?
Oh, yeah. Well, she had that one
fashion critic.
No,
Mike Bowles,
yeah, like
way.
I'm a fashion critic here. But I mean, for years she had that same look that was the dynamic, young, feisty little coach, and it went with it. Well, but now she's more the veteran, savvy, been to a Final Four coach, and it's more the, I don't know how to describe it, but I really like the new look. I saw it for the first time yesterday because she had the old look when she came to Thunder practice about, maybe 10 days, 2 weeks ago, and so this was a surprise to me. When I saw the news last night, I'm like, whoa, she changed her hair. I like it. Thumbs up. Like we were talking before we went on, Stacey Dales has that look in the ESPN studios that played for her. She's got a little bit of the Stacey Dales look.
I wonder if she asked her former player to help her out on this for an extreme makeover. And listen, folks, this is a lady who could be the governor of our state. Think about it. Someday, I mean, she could run for governor because the everybody like she appeals to people across all demographics. What's bigger than Stacey? The second question, though, is this for the lightning round: Sammy B, Sam Bradford, and the NFL. Jake Troutter's got a story today in the Oklahoman on newsok.com right now that says Sam Bradford would be number one on the NFL draft boards, according to Todd McShay. And Mel Kiper later in the story kind of confirms that Sam is big. What about this?
I'm never convinced that a great college quarterback can become a great NFL quarterback. You look at the guys who are good NFL quarterbacks. Tony Romo went to Western Illinois. You got all these guys who are kind of come from the middle of the pack college-wise, and then the guys, except for a couple exceptions, Peyton Manning being the biggest one, who are great in college become great in the NFL. I don't know. I'm suspect.
The first thing you got to look at is the quarterback class. Now I realize that McShay had him ranked number 1, so you got to kind of toss out everybody else. But it's kind of a down year for quarterbacks coming out of college to the draft. I mean, Matt Stafford's probably about the best one behind him.
I put him above that. I put him above Stafford.
Stafford's had a bad year this year compared to what he's done the last couple of years. But Bradford, the work he did in the weight room this summer, getting stronger. He's tall enough. He's got the mind to do it. So I figure that's what McShay figured into his rankings.
Well, the number one thing is whether he has success. And the first quarterback, what Jake put in there, in 60 years from OU to throw a pass in an NFL game?
1949, Eddie and Jack Jacobs.
I think that will happen at some point, whether it's as a backup, clipboard holder, whatever. I think Sam Bradford's definitely got that much talent.
They're talking about him as the number one pick.
Right. Now let's go there that should he go? He should go if he's a top 5 pick and he knows.
Yeah, I'm not convinced that he would go. I don't
Really?
think he would. I don't know. It just seems,
Not very many people who are going to be the number 1 pick say no. Not very many.
And by the way, Ryan this year is really helping that you can jump right in a way that you don't have to develop them like Jamarcus Russell. Guys that had good college careers like Ryan did with Boston College, he's taken a franchise that desperately needed a new quarterback. The other one's in jail, and he's playing decent. Is he ready to take the world by storm?
There's two
No.
sides of that too, and as this guy right here can tell you, Joe Flacco might be the reason to stay in school. Or he was a senior, but to not start a guy right out. Troy Smith.
Listen, they had to have a quarterback. And I'll tell you this. The other thing is another guy's team at the table. If Sam Bradford goes number 1, he may be going to the Kansas City Chiefs. And I'll tell you what, first of all, Oklahoma City will get real interested in the Chiefs. And the secondly is look out. Watch the blind side, Sam. He could get beat up real bad.
Well, the Lions and a few other teams will have a shot at
The
number 1 pick.
Chiefs are bad right now.
They are bad.
Hey, listen, that's it for this time, guys. Thanks. Listen, Oklahoma City's real, permanent, big league moment arrives Wednesday when the Thunder plays the Milwaukee Bucks at the Ford Center. Be sure to pick up a copy of the Oklahoma's Thunder preview section. Show it to them, guys. Welcome to Boomtown, which hits newsstands on Sunday. And be sure to stay with the best coverage team anywhere on newsok.com, newsok.tv, and every day in the new look Oklahoman.